there's something to be said about the extremely rich experience of not having any questions, any doubts, any fears, any insecurities, any voices in your head, any crosstalk, any tension about anything that has to do with you. Alone, all by yourself? No. Things just happen. Sleepiness happens, we close our eyes and go to sleep. Wakefulness happens, the eyes open up and we wake up. Hunger happens, we wander around and we find whatever is yummiest and we eat it until it's not yummiest anymore. Thirst happens, we drink whatever is yummiest to drink in that moment. Usually it's water. Sometimes it's a Coke. Sometimes it's a beer. Whatever, it doesn't make a difference. There's no value. It's just witnessing awareness. Something needs to be done, it gets done. Something doesn't need to get done, it doesn't get done. It doesn't matter. And I don't have a single question, doubt, nothing about myself or myself. The body feels happy. It's happy. The body feels sad. It's sad. The body feels angry. It's angry. It resolves itself. There's no why am I always like this or what would it be like. It's like there's no time for that. It's present, feeling its way through its environment. This is a very, very, very yummy place to start from. When this is your basic default, I wake up in this state, there isn't much you can't do. But if there's a why am I this way, how could it be different? Right now, just doing that presses the button on the walkie-talkie and I'm no longer receiving the information from my environment telling me what to do, how to move, how to engage, when to relax, when to take action. Right? The information's always there. So I don't want to think about what I'm going to do. If I need to think, I think of options and let the body decide. So it's a body using a mind to navigate through complex territories.
It's a mind navigating the body.
Instead of a mind navigating the body through a body image, which is always going to be lower resolution. Right? I can take my beautiful smartphone here, I can open up the camera, and I can see you. And it's you. And it's a nice picture of you. And look, it's you. It's a nice picture of you, right? And I can walk around life like this. Hey, look, there's no poop. However, I promise you that later, or if you were to watch this, you would not have the same experience. Because what I'm seeing here is limited by the amount of pixels and the amount of data, the information that this camera can capture. Guess what? Mind is limited. It's at best 10%. When is it 10%? It's 10% when there's no noise coming in from the body. It's calculated that a human body has between 50 and 100 trillion cells interconnected, living together as an organic unity. It's not a small number. The number of connections have been calculated to be something like 10 to the power of 23, 24. More than all the stars in the known physical universe. More than all the grains of sand on all the planets in the solar system. Right? That's how complex our bodies are. It's calculated, and this could be an error, but let's just throw it out there, that these bodies are processing 2 to 3 billion bits of information per second. Now, if all I'm doing is wondering, why am I happy, why am I sad, well, why doesn't anybody like me, what am I going to find, my wife, my partner, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, why do my kids hate me, why I want more money, when I have more money, why is it like this, why am I going to do that, right? And then I sit there and I pray and I believe and I hope, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying not to do that. But if I'm putting my energy into just trying to create a dream for myself, a vision of how I want to be, I run the risk of missing out on all the details around me. So if out of the 2 to 3 billion bits of information, I have inner pain, physically, emotionally, psychologically, I'm using up all that bandwidth. What's left for the outside world? So, a mind that's working at 100% is the best 10% of the intelligence of your entire form, of the entire body. At best 10%. When it's breathing properly, when the body's getting proper amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide for the situation, when it's at the right hydration level, when it has the right blood sugar levels, when all the nutrients are happy, when it's pain-free, and in a state of chronic pleasure. You have zero thoughts about yourself, about your feelings, about your emotions, about anything in your inner world. Now your mind is functioning at 100%. And, at best, 10% of what's actually happening out there. What happens is that most people don't breathe properly. We already know 2 people who do that. Don't stay hydrated properly because you just haven't put awareness into it. And maybe don't manage your blood sugar levels in the most optimal way. And there's 2 or 3 other little things. And you wake up and you have aches, little pains, little insecurities, little worries, little anxieties, little stresses, which get big when someone's supposed to pay you and then they don't. And you have to pay somebody else. Or mother, father, brother, sister, lover, son, daughter, whoever, something happens to them, or they, I don't know, right? Things don't go the way you expect them to. And all of that starts eating away at the bandwidth. Most people live in chronic pain. That's a lot of bandwidth. Right? Try to be present and meditative and very zen, shanti with a broken tooth. Right? And you haven't eaten. And you were sitting in traffic, stuck in traffic, and the taxi had an accident, and the driver was smoking, and you're tired, you haven't eaten, you're dehydrated, and you've got a bad toothache, and you're not feeling very good. Right? So you might miss out on something. So how to be fully present? Start by allowing the body to feel good and relax. So breathe properly, hydrate properly, eat properly, stretch properly. Take care of the body. Your posture is important. Learning to sit in a way that allows you to sit with minimal effort means that your inner mind, your inner thoughts, your inner tensions, how to keep your body straight. I remember many years ago, I had problems with my neck, back problems, chronic problems. They were getting worse and worse and worse. I suddenly discovered that I was taking painkillers every day and prescription strength painkillers twice a week and going to a chiropractor every week. And suddenly I caught myself in that situation. So I went on a little journey of self-discovery, and I discovered that I was creating all the pain for myself by not listening to the body. And I'll describe that story when we talk about another section. But the bottom line is that I spent an entire day just exploring, feeling how I feel in my body, and I realized that I do things to put myself out of alignment. I stopped doing that, and I stopped going to the chiropractor. I stopped taking prescription painkillers, and I no longer require painkillers on a regular basis. I live in chronic pleasure. I wake up feeling good, I go to bed feeling good, and in between, well, it depends, a lot of things can happen, but for the most part, this body feels good. So it's not, there's no squeaky wheel, there's no inner turmoil or resistance. Right? Does that make sense? And because I'm not doing that, that means I have all of that bandwidth for something else. Additionally, it's getting exactly what it loves to eat when it loves to eat. And it's drinking all the water that it needs. And it's breathing clean, fresh air, because being here is different than being in Bangkok or being in a room with air conditioning, right?
Say that again.
Right, so it's getting fresh air and it gets exercise. It has to walk up and down these crazy hills. And every step is uneven, so it never even can fall asleep on how it walks. I used to have problems with my knees. When I came here, every step is uneven, and I had these knee ache problems because I've worn out the cartilage in my knees. I wasn't sure I'd be able to stay here. But I ate the right nutrition for it, which in this case was young bones, chicken, and pork. Organic, natural, no heavy metals, no toxins, cooked in a pressure cooker. And I ate an abundance of young bone and cartilage once a week. And by walking in a terrain which is uneven, the wear pattern started shifting around, and I rebuilt my knees, and I have no knee issues. When I go to a city, and I spend too much time in Bangkok or in New York or in Singapore, every step is equal. Every turn is a right turn, right? All the sidewalk, everything is the same. My knees start to ache, and I have to change my walking pattern. And I start to do like this Monty Python School of Funny Walks thing, walking down the street, because I need to put a little bit of non-linear wear patterns onto my knees, or they're going to wear out. They're 50-year-old.
That's amazing.
It's a long time for a body like this. The Homo sapiens sapiens, this version is the same version for at least the last 40,000 years. Maybe, but you pay attention to it, and you're not forced to sit in any posture. It doesn't matter how you sit. You can sit in a chair. You know, I've done most of my best meditation in a hammock. It's properly stretched, right? So, body posture and body awareness. So, now I learned a lot of these things from different people, so I can't begin to give credit. But I do remember somebody saying, "Oh, I pay attention to when I sit. I pay attention to the position of my feet because sometimes one foot's out more than the other. So I realign myself so that they are equidistant. Of course, one leg's a little longer than the other, right? So I set up a room where I had mirrors on opposite walls, where I would do my yoga and dance, and I could see myself from both sides. And I started, like, how do I stand? How's my posture? Am I even? This shoulder is lower than that shoulder, right? And start aligning myself, and I realigned myself out of pain into pleasure. When I sleep, I make sure that when I go to bed, that the last thing I do is stretch myself out evenly. When I first wake up, the first thing I do is I wake up before my eyes open. I'm aware of the sunlight coming in through my eyelids. As soon as the sun opens up, I enjoy sleeping in a bed that faces the east. And if I'm in a city, I try to get hotel rooms that face the east. Right? Does that make sense? And I leave the curtains open so that sunrise will awaken me. Because we have natural rhythms that are activated by changes in light. Plants have them, humans have them, animals have them. Right? So I make sure to watch sunrise and sunset. If I'm tired, I can close the curtains and go back to sleep. But I allow myself to be awakened by the sun. And I allow myself to watch the sun go down.
And you should leave it all in because the sun is never shining.
It's never shining. In some places where it's very, very little sun, people get depressed. So somebody discovered that they could create a filament light bulb with a frequency similar to sunlight, and you can set it on a timer so that it balances with your circadian rhythm. But I've got a better solution. I don't live in places that my body doesn't like. Why would I go try to thrive in a place where this body will not thrive? Does it make any sense? I'll just relocate. I used to live in cold places. I used to live too dry, too cold, too polluted, too this, too congested. I'm going to go live wherever this body thrives. I can do anything from here. Most of the work, I used to have a hammock here. I made all my money sitting in a hammock wearing Thai fisherman pants. Because here I can thrive. Here I can function so well that an hour of my thoughts is better than a year of, I can have a creative thought in 1 hour that's beyond anything I could do sitting at a desk in an office in a place I'm not happy. Why not put your body, figure out first what does your body need, and then move it around the world and let it arrive in a place where it wakes up and it goes, I want to live here. Okay, so where are we? Here. What's here? Nothing. Run down, broken, rotten old bungalow for $250 baht a night. Is it for sale? Yeah, okay, well, let's buy it. Let's turn it into our base game. Where I can do anything else. Right? Does that make sense? So you have the option of doing that, but you have to give yourself permission first to follow your body. I remember sitting in the back seat of my parents' car. It was a 1972, brand new, 72, Plymouth Fury. I was 6 years old. I remember watching we were in Norwalk, Connecticut, in the U.S. It was wintry time. We were driving through a road in Norwalk. We were going to go visit some relative. And And I remember seeing two people walking down the street, and they were kind of struggling against the cold winter. They had jackets. I could see their faces. And I remember watching my little hand go up and point at one of them and go, "Pew." I remember hearing my little voice in my head saying, I just killed you, and you don't even know it because you're already dead. You're alive, I can't kill you. You're dead. And I would identify people that looked like they were dead, like zoned out somewhere else. I could see dead people. I could see zombies. I could see people that were completely robotic. And then certain people had a certain spark. They had a certain aliveness. In that moment, I could see that they had a certain level of aliveness. So I played this game for a while. And one day I chose to ask my mother about it. My mother was kind of in the middle. Sometimes she had a spark, and sometimes she was kind of zoned out. But I waited for a moment when she had a spark, and I asked her, Mama, why is it that some people look alive and other people look like they're dead? Like they're just not there, what's happening? And she said to me, Son, I don't know anything about life. You were born without a manual. You have to figure it out yourself. I don't know anything about life. You were born without a manual. You have to figure it out yourself. And at that time, I think we just bought a VCR or something. And it needed a manual, and you had to read the manual of the program. And it was just perfect timing. And she said, we're born without manuals. You got to figure it out. She goes, but I've heard that there are people in India, they call themselves yogis. We have carpet on the floor. And she said, they sit like this. They call it the lotus position. And they sit like this. And they say that they can stop their breath, and they can stop their heart, and they can levitate, and they can astral travel and project. I don't know what that means, but I don't know anything myself. And I remember being 6, almost 7 years old, and looking at her, and realizing that she was speaking the truth, that she really did not know anything about life, and that I needed to figure it out myself. So I walked off and I sat, and I thought, I'm going to stop my breath. It didn't last very long. You can't do that for very long, right? I thought, all right, well,
Maybe you should have talked to me before then, because I can.
because you're a master at stopping your breath, right? So I thought, how do I stop my heart? Well, I already knew that when I run, and I love to run, I love to sprint, that the faster I ran, the faster my heart. And I would try to see how fast I could get my heart. And I thought, I wonder if I can see how fast I can go. And then I'm going to see how slow I can breathe. I'm not going to stop my breath because I can't do that. I'm going to see how little I can breathe and see what happens. So I would sit in the prescribed position, even though it didn't really mean anything to me, but it was comfortable. So I'm 7 years old, so it's very easy to sit in that position. So I'm sitting like this. And I would start slowing down my breath. And if I slowed it down too fast, I would breathe a little more. And I started learning to slow my breath down and make it more shallow and more limited until there was just a tiny little. I could feel it. And I could feel the air. And I would do that. And I think a mosquito is trying to eat you. Yeah, no. Okay. It looked like it was about to. And I remember discovering that I could not stop my breath. I never stopped my heart. I never levitated. I never astral projected or traveled. I was a 7-year-old boy sitting on the floor. That was it. That was the fact of it. And that was very clear to me. Nothing beyond that was interesting. What I did discover is that things would get so quiet that I could hear and feel my heartbeat in my entire body at once. And that was incredibly soothing. And I would enter that space, and I would pop out of it an hour later. Like I would just disappear. But I would come out of it relaxed, feeling really good, very calm, felt good. So I've done it the rest of my life. Why? Because it feels good, and I like feeling good. I like pleasure. Whatever makes my life feel yummier, I'm going to do that. So I would just sit. There was no intention of doing anything other than. But I learned that I could just sit and do that. So I learned that I could do that anywhere, anytime, because I can be sitting in class, and the teacher's very boring, and I can just slow my breath down, and just hear my heartbeat, and just get refreshed. Or sitting on the bus, or waiting in traffic, or waiting for my mother to finish shopping. Eyes open, eyes closed, who cares? I'm just breathing, I can just do it. So I would just do that. And I learned how to do that when I was 6 or 7. And that was it. Once again, I never teleported, never actually, just the laws of physics remained the same. Okay? I did this my entire life. On and off, I forgot about it. But the next important part of this story happens when I'm somewhere between 13. I'm at my friend's house after school, my friends John and Brian. We're jumping off of their low-pitched roof. And the idea is very simple. We learn to jump, land, and roll off of a low-pitched roof, and we work our way up, and then one day we can jump off the Empire State Building. Because I'm a 13-year-old boy, I can think that way. Right? But I start with, the roof was a low-pitched roof. It was still at least as high as that roof, right? So we climb up the back, and I jumped 3-4 times. And I'd taken judo as a child, so I knew how to jump and land and roll. And I went to jump, and I remember my 4th jump. I went to jump, and the body wouldn't jump. I could jump. I tried 3 times. The body would not leave the roof. And I remember hearing an angry, loud voice in my head, and I literally heard the sound, "What's the matter with you? Don't be a coward, jump!" And I jumped, and somehow I managed to trip on something, and I fell head first, and I landed in a shrub, and I narrowly missed breaking my head, poking an eye out, and I was upside down, tangled in this tree. And I remember thinking, that didn't work out. Untangled myself from the tree, shook myself off, climbed back up, and I could see my footprints on the roof. There was dust on the roof. So I put my feet exactly in the same place. Just then there was a little bit of fear, but a little of, And once again, I couldn't jump. This time, instead of pushing myself, I just took a breath and relaxed. And I felt my heartbeat. And suddenly I noticed, out of the corner of my right eye, there was an outline that would look like a black line, like something there. Like you can see out in the peripheral vision, there's like a fish tank over there, or there's like a line over here, right? Something was there. And I remember feeling on the edge of my feet, on my toe. I was wearing sneakers, tennis shoes, whatever, right? And I remember feeling the slightest pressure on my right toe. The slightest pressure. And I remember looking down, and sure enough, there was a black coaxial TV antenna cable running along the roof, and my foot was right there. It was touching. I placed my foot there. I could see it out of the corner of my eye. And I realized that I had seen this the first time and I ignored it. A loud voice pushed me to jump. When I pushed myself to jump, I missed something. And at that age, I remember in school, we were in math class, we were dividing fractions. And the law of the lowest common denominator, right? You look for the lowest common denominator when you're going to multiply or divide fractions. That's how you clear out the junk. And suddenly this insight appeared. The law of the lowest common denominator. If any part of my being, if my little toe, if a hair inside my nose or behind my says don't, I need to stop, pay attention to it. Because all I had to do was put my foot over the cable, and my body launched, leaped, landed, and rolled beautifully. 10-point jump and roll off the ceiling. Right? So, over the rest of my life, from that moment on, I kept a clear distinction between the loud voice, the aggressive voice, the angry voice, the desire, the will, and the quiet voice that is only available when I quiet myself down so I can feel my heart. And that voice, over the years, I learned that whenever there's a choice between the quiet voice and the loud voice, you go with the quiet voice. Because the loud voice always gets you into trouble. You always end up upside down on your head, something broken, with a cut with bruises and bleh, something yucky. And the other one might be longer, might be more boring, might be less exciting, might be whatever. It always ends up yummier. So I learned to follow both. And I followed both until I turned 40. When I turned 40, I had an experience, which I'll describe later, where both voices came up. And my quiet voice said, "You've made it. You've gone as far as you can go with the way you're living your life. And it's time to try something new." And my mind's voice was afraid of that. So I chose to obviously follow my little voice. So I jumped on an adventure. And what I had done over the years is I'd learned how to create situations for myself where I would suddenly find myself feeling my heartbeat, being relaxed and present. In other words, I discovered that it was in my greater interest, it served my highest interest, to be able to find that quiet, centered space where I could feel my heartbeat in any and all given situations. So I looked for situations, devices, experiences that would get me to there. How do I get there? How do I make this happen more often? Does that make sense? And I will describe all of those in a separate section because they're important. But the main thing is that can you identify those quiet moments? Can you create situations where you can tune into your little inner voice, your little inner silent knowing? Can you hear the difference between what your mind, your desires, your hopes, your egos, your dreams have? And can you dare to try one or the other and decide which one works best for you? Right, but tell me, if you were breathing properly and hydrating properly and eating properly, and you knew that you could create the situations to find that centered point, couldn't you go out of your way to create a situation so that you could find that center and then know what to do? Because I know what to do under any situation. If I receive a phone call right now that, well, if suddenly, whatever, the generator explodes, I'm just going to run up and see what's happening, or run away, or go grab my girl, my baby, and move out of the way. Right? I'm going to jump out of the window immediately. The place goes on fire, I'm going to be swimming, I'm going to be by that buoy real quick. No thought, nothing, right? But apart from an immediate get out of the way now type of experience, because you're going to get hit by a train or a bomb is going to hit you on the head. Apart from those situations, there is rarely anything that happens in my life that I can't sort out after a massage and a meal. Somebody's dying, a war just broke off, I just lost $1 billion, whatever it is. And I need to decide, how much time do I have? Well, you can tell me this afternoon. Great, I'm going to go get a massage. I'm going to get a massage. I'm going to get a 2-hour massage. And then I'm going to need either a steak lunch or some fish or I'm going to need something so that I can, right? And now, I'm going to shut off, I'm going to turn off my phone. I'm like, everything, full reset. I'll be back in an hour. I'll be back in 2 hours. How many hours do I have? 3 hours. Oh, plenty of time. I can get a massage, I can get a long shower, I can have a nice lunch, I can drink a double espresso, eat a little piece of chocolate. Okay, sorry. What part of the world just disappeared? Like, who'd lost billions of what? How I'm dying when? I've got how many months, how many hours left to live? At least I'm starting fresh. That's all I need. It's that simple. I'm clear. I'm up to date on all of my experiences up to now. My life is caught up. My inbox is empty. The only thing I'm doing is sharing stories with 2 new friends. If there's a situation, I have to center. Now, we wanted to start yesterday, but there was a situation. There was a storm coming. I knew that we had potential problems. I could just tell. I could feel it. My little voice was like, I'm not going to be able to be fully present with these people if I'm worried about the generator or a lightning strike or a flood problem or a mudslide or a rock landing on the restaurant. Like so I can't help you today. I can help you tomorrow. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I can be present now. So I took care of everything I needed to. I even paid my taxes. I did all sorts of things. Now, the story. When I was 40, I realized that I could make more money than I needed to spend. My house had more rooms than I could sleep in. I had more cars that I could drive at once. I had more lovers that I could keep track of. My life was pretty good. I felt healthy, I felt empowered. I was starting a new career, a new coaching career. My teachers were hiring me to work on them. I had some competitive edge, and it was always by following that little voice. And that little voice said, there's some things that are missing. We're doing great. We can keep living our life the way that we are. And 40, 50 years from now, we'll have had an amazing life experience. At some point, we'll retire from this work and what we're doing, and we can do all the things we've always wanted to do. Or, why don't we sell everything, cash out, see how much we've got, quick calculation, we have enough for about 3 to 5 years of doing whatever we want, whenever we want. We're going to play this game. It's called, let's be spontaneous. Let's follow our intuition. Let's do whatever we want, whenever we want, until it's time to do whatever feels best. So within 24 hours, my house was on the market. My resignation was in at work. I was saying goodbye to all of my friends. I was telling all of my lovers we're not going to be lovers anymore after this thing unless you come find me somewhere, because I'm going to just leave and forget you. And I'm just going to go off on a new adventure. I'll be back or not. I have no idea what's going to happen. And it took me 6 months to organize myself before I could finally leave. But it was clear that night, I knew, on my 40th birthday, I knew that that's what was going to happen. So I launched on my experience, and I spent 3 years intentionally investing in myself in every way that was interesting to me. So I chose to sail a quarter way around the world on an old pirate ship, an 84-foot ferrocement Chinese junk called the RV Heraclitus, with a bunch of crazy pirates. And I chose to go spend some time in Thailand. And I chose to learn how to paint and draw and sing and yoga and tai chi and martial arts and more dancing and language. And approach every girl that I thought was pretty and say, you're so pretty, can I please have a kiss? And see if she says yes or no. And just try and taste everything that was yummy and interesting in the moment. Very simple. I'm drinking this glass of water, you are one of many. I'm kissing you, you are one of many. I'm playing with you, you are one of many. Just having fun. Until it's time to, I would get dressed, I would leave my house, and I would let my feet decide if they were going to go left, right, or straight. My hand would suddenly come up, or back in. My hand would suddenly come up, and I would stop a taxi, and I would get in, and I'd say, where do you want to go? A word would pop into my mind. Let's go here. Take me there. Along the way, I'd say, stop. I'm getting out here. And I started doing this, and I got to a point where now I'm living in Bangkok. I've got and I have a budget because I have a certain amount of money. And my idea is I'm going to spend all of this money. I'm going to invest all of this money in myself. When I'm down to just the last little bits, I'll start over again and figure out what I want to do. Or maybe I'll just go to zero because I had this kind of like this intuitive, hard to put a word on it, but it was like this little thing I wanted to try, which was I wanted to know what it would feel like if I could be just dropped, not naked, but let's say wearing jeans and a t-shirt, anywhere in the world, not Karachi, Pakistan, because they would, cut my eyes out instantly because I just don't look like I fit. But anywhere, not the middle of the African bush on a full moon and the lions are out, but just about anywhere on the planet. Just put me somewhere, and what can I do if I'm just a seed of grass blown by the wind, just with my wits, just with my skills? Can I thrive? Because I've mastered making money, finding jobs, creating a nice house, finding friends, being creative, finding lovers. I can do all of that. I practiced, I tuned my little voice into how to do that, right? I would enter different territories not knowing anything about it, and I would allow myself just to get quiet, guess, sit, the flash. This is what I'm going to do next. Does that make sense? So I got to a point where I was 90% intuitive in the moment, spontaneous, living in Bangkok, in a 4-star serviced executive apartment overlooking Silom Park. There was a 5-star restaurant below with room service 24 hours. There was half a dozen quality restaurants open 24 hours. There was massage stops. I had 2 shops with my favorite therapists. I could call for a massage. I could get a massage at 3 in the morning if I wanted. I could do anything I wanted to. I could go dancing 24/7. Like, it was a full, thriving, alive city 10 years ago where you could do whatever you wanted to. You just had the resources, and I had the money. So I invested it in myself. And one day, I found myself intuitively in a bookstore, and I found a book that had 2 words on it that I recognized that somehow cross-linked. And the first word was courage, and it went back to an experience I'd had a couple of years before. And suddenly, courage, that's an interesting book. And the other word was Osho. Osho. You've heard of Osho? And I'd heard a reference to him from somebody that I respected. And I thought, Osho, courage, this could be an interesting book. So I took it, and I bought it, and I took it home and I read it. And I read the whole thing like in a day and a half. And I underlined everything in the book that I agreed with, which was 99% of everything the man said made sense with my view of what the world is like and what courage is, except for one thing. And that one thing that did not align was that Osho describes in his book that it's all experienced from a state of no mind. And my argument was, no way, Osho, you're wrong. I use my mind for everything. I've created this exquisite life experience. I'm killing it. I have the best life in the world. I don't care how much money somebody else has or what they say they're doing. I know I've got the best life in the world. And I'm using my mind to get there. So I finished the book, and I knew there were other books because there was 10 in that series. It's called Insights into Living. And they were there, so I bought one, and I went back 2 days later, I went back and I bought the next book. It was a book called Courage, there's Integrity, there's Joy, there's Intuition, there's Joy, there's a series in that series. So I picked up the next book, and I read the whole thing, and I underlined every sentence in the book, except the one that I crossed out, every other page that said, from a state of no mind. I was like, no way, Osho. I use my mind. The next book, and the next book, and the next book, and I read 9 of his books. On the 10th book, the last in that series, 3/4 of the way through the book, suddenly, I got it. See, I use my mind to create situations where I can be present without my mind. But because my mind isn't there, I have no reference point to say, here I am with no mind, because there's nobody to say, here I am with no mind. If you create situations where you just suddenly drop into being present, your mind will come up and say, hey, here I am, I'm present. Not anymore. Then you do it again. You do it again. You do it 100 times. You do it 1,000 times. Eventually, it's boring. There's nothing special about it. It doesn't trigger your mind to come on, to think, here I am, once again, without me being here until I've had this thought. Eventually, you just get it. Like when you're trying to hula hoop and suddenly you get it, and it just stays. I'm not doing anything. It's happening all by itself. Learning how to float. You're terrified, you sink, you're tight. One day you relax, you float, and you laugh at yourself. Because if you get tight, you sink, and if you relax, you float. Floating requires not doing anything. It requires just being relaxed in the water. Flat water. Being present requires creating the conditions so that your body can naturally fall into just being present. It stops turning on because it has no questions to ask. It has no doubts. It has no labels to add to that experience anymore. And as soon as that happens, there's a transformation that I most highly recommend for everyone on this planet. It's so valuable that if tomorrow I had a choice, if I knew that it was going to disappear forever, I would consciously and knowingly end my life while I was still conscious, rather than live another 100 years with everything, all the billions and whatever you want. I would not live another day knowing I cannot be present anymore. I would just say, okay, well, my last thing to do is to stop, is to leave this body being present. That's how rich it is. Knowing how to do that sitting in a cave somewhere is great, but you're stuck to living in a cave somewhere, because as soon as you step out, someone's going to ask you for rent or give you a jaywalking ticket or right? Some cute girl or boy is going to walk by and wink at you, and you're going to start going, right? You're going to get pulled out of it. Learning how to be present, having a full, dynamic, rich life experience, being a part of it, but always witnessing it, is a very, very rich experience. What I have to offer you is the direct experience, direct knowledge, direct insight that I was able to discover what this body needed in order to do that. I followed my instincts. They became intuition. And they became pure witnessing presence by just following themselves and creating the conditions, giving this body what it needs to have the experience it needs to have. And as a biologist, as a scientist, as somebody who was already studying human behavior, and studying myself since the age of 7, I know as an absolute fact that there's nothing special about it. It's ordinary. It's ordinary. All you have to do is eat well, breathe well, drink well. Rightful living. Right? The right life, the right living for you. Whatever that is for you. You can do it. It's attitude. The fact that I can be present in any situation, mind off, means that all the rest of my senses are bringing in information about my environment. I'm feeling my way through in ways that I cannot think. There are territories that go beyond logic and reason. Most of existence is beyond logic and reasoning. Logic and reasoning is just one little window that we humans have. And only if we actually put it in. If we don't install that window, we don't have any logic. We just see things the way they are. Now, to be a body without logic and reasoning, you will not understand yourself enough to awaken from your mind. So you will stay as a human animal in the most beautiful form. I'm not saying that in any bad way. My position on humanity is that it is sub-animal. It's functioning lower, because the animals aren't trashing their environment. Right? They're not shitting on everything. It's like only when they're sick. I had a cat once that was very depressed. It was my girlfriend's, and she left for a month on a job, and it stayed with me, and it loved her so much, it was so attached to her. It got depressed, and it started sleeping in its litter box. So it was depressed, it was unhappy, right? So I pull it out, more love and attention, and slowly it learned to be happy again, and it was okay. But we humans are destroying our planet. We're functioning like sick animals. My definition of wellness starts with waking up in a body that is relaxed, energized, feeling good, right? Feet that are happy to walk around and walk through the beach or climb a mountain or put on dress shoes or go into a bank, whatever it needs to do. But when I stop walking, my feet stop moving. Fingers that are happy to Facebook and Twitter, scratch, tickle my little girl wherever she is, right? Play, draw. But as soon as I'm done with that, they just stop. And a mind that is sharp, clear, and ready to explore the world, the outside world, like a radar, like an X-ray machine, to look at and recognize a supercomputer. And then when I'm finished with it, So in order to do that, all I did was just start studying my body. I started when I was 7. How far can I jump? How fast can I run? How slow can I move? How little can I breathe? What's the lowest my heart rate will go? What's the least amount of food that I need or water that I need? What happens if I only eat sugar? What happens if I only eat fat? What happens if I only eat this? Right? What about my emotions? What's my anger? Well, let's just go someplace where we can't bother anyone and be angry. And kill a pillow. Chop down a dead tree. Right? Dig a hole. Put my head underwater and scream. There's sadness. Okay, let's create a space, a beautiful space where I can just sit and allow myself to be sad and go into my deepest sadness. My fears. What are my fears? I want to know what my fears are. I want to know, why am I afraid? See, I know, it's known that humans are born with 0 fears. They're all learned. You're born with a startle reflex. If somebody jumps up from behind you, and you want that, because there you are sleeping and a tiger is sneaking up on you and it steps on a twig and it goes crack, and you, maybe that's what saves you. Right? So you want to keep that. But do I have any fears that I imprinted from my parents, my culture, my society, which have nothing to do with my life today? Should they be triggering? Should my life be subjective to these unconscious experiences? Right? So, first, give the body what it needs so it is relaxed, energized, well stretched, and naturally falls into its center. Second, recognize what that is and keep working on creating, fine-tuning that so it happens more often. Then that's at home. Then go out and do the things you love to do, like if hiking and exercise helps you get there, that's a great way to go clear your mind. Dancing works for me. Dancing to music that I've never heard before, with no lyrics, is the quickest way for this body. And there's combinations of things. How you do your breath with your food, with your movement, with your stillness. These are all things that we're going to discuss over the next few days. But the basics are, and as far as I'm concerned, they're just facts. They're just basic biology. Is that there is a certain breath rate that your body needs now, which is different from when you're sleeping, which is different from when you're dancing, which is different when you're making love, which is different when you're climbing a mountain. There's a certain, right, when you're thinking on something, there's a certain way of breathing that is ideal, perfect, the best for you. There's a hydration level that works for you. Figure that out. There's blood sugar levels. Maintain steady blood sugar levels. Also, be aware of what happens if you're at baseline blood sugar levels. If tomorrow you wake up and there's no food, what are you going to do? Suffer? Stress? Or, okay, I'm now in calm mode. Right? I would do my fast when I was on the ship sailing across the Indian Ocean. I would, of course, check the weather and make sure there was no storms coming. I would check to make sure there were no pirates coming.
Did you do it
Right?
on your own?
Oh, there were other people on the boat. There was a dozen people on the ship. Big ship. You know? So I would do my fast. Of course, if a storm was coming, I would break my fast immediately because it's not about dogma. It's not a. We're doing a fast tomorrow. You decide, or the next day you decide to do a fast, and emergency phone call, email, your mom just had whatever. I have to. Give me a second. I'm going to call you right back. Eat. Blood sugars are established. Okay, Mom, what's the problem? Right? Because I'm not going to attempt that because I'm aware that that's not the right approach. Right? That's it. And with these basics, you can find that quiet spot. In that quiet spot, I can feel my heartbeat. I can feel that heartbeat, and everything that comes through from the silent spaces between the heartbeats. As a child, I could only hear the heartbeats. I wasn't aware of the silence between the heartbeats. As a mature adult, I became aware of the space between my heartbeats. The background silence. When I dance, I allow my body to slip and move through the spaces between the notes, behind the sound. I'm interested in the background, in the void. I'm hearing all the sounds, but I'm hearing the silence the sounds are coming through. And I'm feeling the body. Right? But that's biology. There's nothing special about that. There's no. I can't claim any of it. Just like I can't claim breathing or seeing or anything. I didn't even make up this language. I'm copying, I'm using other people's words. There's nothing. Right?
Physical alignment. Now, the quality of our physical alignment, whether it be normal and good physical alignment, peak performance physical alignment, and unhealthy and poor quality physical alignment, will have a direct effect on the amount of energy that's needed from low to good to high to accomplish the same tasks, low activity intensity to high activity intensity. In other words, when I'm at peak performance physical alignment, my body is symmetrical, it's balanced, I'm feeling relaxed, energized, ready to dance, I can perform low intensity activities and even high intensity activities with a minimal amount of energy. As compared to when I am in normal physical alignment, where as we get older, when we reach our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, I'm in my mid-50s, it's easy to accumulate some aches and pains and stiffness that are age-related. We have poor sleep. And if our body's out of alignment, we do okay. We still get around. We can still perform. But it takes more energy, so we get tired more. Right? And we notice this, children tend to outrun us adults because they're at better performance because they tend to be more symmetrical and more balanced because they've had less years to accumulate behavior patterns of sitting improperly, walking improperly, holding our bodies in a way that keep us out of alignment. And this generates wear and tear on the body to the point where it's very common these days to see the vast majority of people in very poor, unhealthy physical alignment. And these are people that are in chronic pain. They have all sorts of illnesses and injuries. They're limited physically, emotionally, and mentally. So think of it as your car. If the wheels and the alignment of your car are out of alignment, not only do you have more wear and tear on the wheels and the brakes, but you also use more gas. You need more power to get through. Same with the aerodynamics of a boat or a performance car or an airplane. The smoother the alignment, the least amount of resistance. So there's a certain amount of resistance in our bodies and a certain amount of energy and tension that goes into our bodies to deal with the fact that we might be in unhealthy and poor alignment or just normal alignment. And then there is a peak performance alignment that once again you discover by practicing for yourself. And this is where the discipline of yoga comes in, and it's a beautiful way of learning how to effortlessly align yourself, or with the least effort. Now there's different types of yogas. There's power yogas they're power yogas. You power through them. But then there's yogas like Hatha yoga and Raja yoga, where the point is to how to balance yourself and align yourself. Now you don't need to be an advanced yogi or take a bunch of classes if you don't have access to them. A lot of times all you need to do is just stand in front of a mirror and look at yourself. And notice, are your shoulders at the same height? Is your head straight? Are you tilting to one side? Notice when you're sitting, is one foot out of alignment with another? Are you slouching when you're sitting at the table and eating? Are you sitting up straight? You can practice balancing yourself in alignment so it takes the least amount of energy. And with a little bit of practice and with awareness, your body can attain to a higher quality physical alignment, which will mean that your body will then need less energy for different activities and less energy just to relax. So one of the exercises you can do, for example, is when you go to bed, lay down in your bed, on your back, comfortably, nice and straight, and align yourself as perfectly as you can. Your left side, your right side, your legs, your arms, just learn how to do that. And then if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're kind of twisted and turned to one side, realign yourself. Each time you do this, you bring the body back to a higher quality alignment. And slowly, slowly over time, you can learn to realign yourself. And of course, if you have access to a yoga class or a teacher or a guide or a facilitator that can help you find out how to get your best alignment, try it, because it'll improve the quality of your life.